So I want to start off by saying I'm not a medical professional, so please do not take this as medical advice. You should get medical advice from your doctor or your trusted medical sources. I can't even believe these days that people go to Facebook and YouTube for medical information, unless it's a doctor that happens to be talking. Also, do not try anything what I'm telling you to do at home. It might be harmful to your health. I'm a vlogger who is telling my story. My story is descriptive of my experience, and that does not mean that it is prescriptive, that you should do it. So COVID-19 lockdowns happened in March 2020, and our world was changed forever. Church was changed forever. I was attending a large, well-known church at the time where I was being mentored by the founder pastor. And the doors closed almost right away. The church was shut completely. The church continued online, and classes continued via Zoom. Almost like in the blink of an eye. I was pretty impressed. But I remember saying to myself, wait a minute, we shouldn't just continue like this, like everything hasn't changed. This isn't healthy. And I was telling the other leaders, we can't just continue to go forward like this. Let's take a pause. And everybody was like, nope, we're just going to keep going forward. And I was like, wow. But I realized I had another major problem, that I realized I had zero desire to attend church services online or attend Bible studies via Zoom. Zero. I think I attended one church service for like 15 minutes during the whole pandemic. Either I was going in person or I just wasn't going to go. So I left my church and I decided to find a church that was going to be open during the pandemic. And I found one. Now, I went to their church's website, and I remember they had a statement similar to this. I don't remember the exact wording, but it said something along the lines that if you get COVID-19, then please come to church so we can lay hands on you and you can get healed. And I was sitting there saying, this is great. I'm going to this church. And I just loved that faith statement. Now, I realized that I'm relatively healthy, right? And I don't have any secondary health risks. But I also realized that COVID-19 was serious. My best friend's father had passed away, and I realized that this was a serious situation. At the same time, I felt comfortable because I was relatively healthy, although I was a little concerned for my parents. So it was this small church with like less than 100 people at services, and they met close to Times Square in New York City. And in the beginning, remember that New York City was the epicenter of the COVID pandemic. I attended this ministry at times before because they were well known for their prophetic ministry and got classes there as well. And so I said, listen, let's go and see how this is. Our first church service during the pandemic. So I get there. I got my N95 mask on. And I get there, but no one has masks. No one's social distancing. And when worship started, everybody went up into the front, kind of like a rock concert in crowd formation. On top of this, people are hugging each other, as well as praying for one another. And I'm sitting here going, wow, this is not what I had in mind. Now, I'm a person and a man of faith. I believe in God's healing power, and I also believe in God's divine protection for believers. At the same time, I also believe in medical science and common sense. So, for instance, if my dog was to get hit by a car, I would call the ambulance first, and then secondly, I would pray and lay hands on my dog. So at first I get there and I'm saying, I am really uncomfortable right now. This does not make sense. We should be using proper precaution. people should at least have a mask on. And I was a little thrown back, I gotta be honest with you. I keep coming back a second and a third time. And then one time I'm in worship, and I felt like the Holy Spirit spoke to my heart. It's okay, Josh, to take off the mask. It's okay. You can trust me. And I'm thinking to myself, man, am I hearing right? And I knew that God was speaking to me. Somehow I just knew that this particular church in this situation at this time was under divine protection. I can't tell you how I knew that, but I knew it in my spirit. And so that doesn't mean that you should try to go do this at your church where you're at right now, or try any of this. I think this is all because of a combination of church leadership that really had faith, that really believed in healing, that really prayed for their people and prayed over the services. This was a praying church. And I think a combination of those things made this a place that we had divine protection for these services. Now, I was attending this church for a whole year in the middle of the pandemic, and not one person got COVID-19. Again, no masks, no social distancing, and the vaccines weren't out yet at that point. Now, I'm not sure how this worked, but I knew I was witnessing a miracle. We were under divine protection for that time period. And what I was seeing was not normal, could not be understood by the reasonable mind, but was something that was in the spiritual realm that kept us safe for that whole entire year. Not one COVID-19 positive test among those people. Now, during that time, I'm in communication with several other churches, and they were having COVID outbreaks and different things like that. Even at worship practices and things, 30, 40 people came down with COVID. I'm not saying that COVID-19 isn't really real, that it spreads, that it doesn't kill. It does. But during this time period, I am telling you, I know for a fact that we were under divine protection from God. I don't suggest that you follow this advice unless you're in a spirit-filled church where the leadership has real faith, that they believe in divine healing, that they believe in prayer. Now, let me say this. As a result of this video, it's like the Holy Spirit was reminding me this week. It is time to tell my people to go back to church. It is time for people to go back to church in person. Online church is not church. An online worship experience is not an experience. If you are sick or physically not in good health, you should stay home. I think people should use practical wisdom. Wash your hands. Use sanitizer. Wear masks if you feel uncomfortable. Be in good health. Eat right. Sleep right. Take vitamins, vitamin D and vitamin zinc. Use practical wisdom. At the same time, we need to be in church. I could watch the Yankee game at home if I want to on TV, but there's nothing like being in Yankee Stadium with the other Yankee fans and watching a game on a nice summer day. And so the same it is with church. When the saints of God come together in God's house and they're worshiping God, we're connected to God, we're connected to others, something supernaturally happens. That doesn't happen when you're home watching on Zoom. Now, one last thing that I wanted to say. You want to be in a church like the church I was in. I'm no longer there, but I appreciate it that they responded to COVID-19 in faith and not fear. I believe that we are living in the beginning of the end times, and Jesus Christ is coming soon, possibly in my lifetime. I want to be ready for him. I believe the world is going to get darker and darker, but the light is going to get lighter and lighter. And I believe that things are going to become more complicated, and we're going to face more complex problems. And COVID-19 was a test and a trial for the church. It was to stop and break up just church as normal. And it was to get us on a different path. And it was really a divine interruption in many aspects. But I believe what's coming is a lot worse. And if we can't keep our churches open during COVID, if we can't keep our churches open under this pandemic, then surely what's ahead will not be able to face. Your church will not be able to face. Because I believe things are going to get worse. Whether it's food shortages or natural disasters or civil discord or violence or these different things. So if you were in a church that was closed during the pandemic, your church is going to be in no shape to face the darkness that's ahead of us. It's going to get dark. The good news is we're waiting for Jesus Christ to come and set up his government. So we don't have to be afraid. He's with us. Lastly, I had a dream at 24 years old that shook me to the core, unlike anything else I've ever seen. And we were living in the end times, and we were in a house, and we were looking out the window, and tanks were going down the street, and it was clear we were in a very serious situation, and that possibly Christianity was illegal. And we were hiding out, and we were worshiping as a small community, maybe 20, 25 people. And I went into the backyard of that house, and I was raptured up into the sky like a rocket ship. So quickly that the wind was hurting my face, and I knew that I was about to see God. And that was just a clear indication for me that as the days get darker, as things get more serious, the church was going to shift into more house churches. And so I had left that church to begin the process of starting a house church and joining a house church community. Because I believe that the churches will be shaken, they will be tested, and in many cases, like in New York City, even shut and demanded by the government that they be shut. And so I believe that God is starting a house church movement because many of the churches will be closed by what's ahead. I heard Jimmy Evans say this the other day. He did a lot of research, and he looked at just the declining mental health of people physically, emotionally, and mentally during the COVID-19 pandemic. But he found one thing, that church people did not experience the same decline as every other group. There was the Christian church people that had their community and stayed focused, and that helped them stay, anchored during the pandemic in the midst of this. Worship is essential. It's absolutely needed. And I can tell you one thing, I was affected by the pandemic, but I don't know what I would do if I didn't have a church community that was open, people that I can hug, people that I can worship with every Sunday. If I was home watching from Zoom, I wouldn't have made it. One last thing before I close. I got to give you guys a good tip. So if you know anyone who tests positive for COVID or COVID-19, you want to get Ken Fish's video, his COVID-19 prayer. It's a divine revelation that he got out of Psalm 91 on how to pray for people with COVID. I'm going to put that in the link in the description down below. Check that video out. You're going to want to see that. How to pray for COVID-19 and people with COVID. Be blessed, be encouraged. Thank you for watching.